the moment, a lot of AI is all processed and managed in the cloud because that's where the computational power is. In the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a shift for all that consumer data to be held on the edge. Your actual individual data will be held on your edge device, and by that I mean your phone. Ice ICT, or Ice Technology Services, we're about 10 years old, and we started originally by we're a managed service and IT support company specialising in the travel industry. Over the last 10 years, we've grown into a sort of group of companies which specialise in digital transformation. So we have a company that the core of the business is still managed service and consultancy in the travel industry, but we have now companies that specialise in software integration, software testing, cybersecurity, GDPR compliance, and so this group of companies now we refer to as the Ice Way, which is kind of an ecosystem of companies that enable. It's like an end-to-end enabler of a digital strategy. So we offer a sort of a one-stop shop for injecting new technology into digital frameworks that companies have got.
Okay.
So I think what we realised is that companies don't want to have to deal with lots of different vendors and companies when they're putting together a solution. So we have the companies, we do all that for them and bring everything together and manage it and host it for them, and sort of we can inject it into their digital strategy.
Okay, so it's specifically in the travel sector. How does that work?
Well, so our primary vertical is the travel industry. We do work in retail and also healthcare as well, but by and large, it's 80% travel. So for a typical example would be to move people away from one reservation to a system to another, or automate certain processes. It might be they might be looking for some kind of application or mobile application that we'd implement into their systems, or into the way they deal with their customers. It's a lot of it's customer engagement. On the cruise side, we're also getting more involved into more business operations process technology as well. So it's working with the crew of the ship to make sure to try and help automate their processes, not just about the customer-facing technology. So.
Okay. So do you build and develop the solutions that you recommend to clients, or have you got a wide knowledge of the products and services out there that your clients need?
I would say more the latter than the former. So we have a wide knowledge. We have a number of databases so for instance, we have a database of all the travel booking systems out there that we keep very well up to date, so that when we get involved in a procurement situation where a tour operator, let's say, might ask us to go and find a new booking system for them, we can, through quite quickly, narrow down the choices and get the best fit for that particular situation. So we work with a lot of different vendors. We're completely independent. That's one of our USPs, is that we don't really care about which system we work with or implement into a particular situation, but it's more about what the best fit is for the client. Occasionally we get involved in developing applications and developing systems, but usually it's more about integration of systems, which is why we have the development partners that we work with to actually get the integrations right, to make sure whatever system we do put in, it fits into their particular application stack.
Okay, so that gives you quite a broad overview of the travel tech landscape. I mean, what do you think would be what is the dominant conversation that you're expecting to have with clients over the next year?
Over the next year, I think the dominant topic of discussion is going to be artificial intelligence and these exponential technologies, so virtual reality, augmented reality. So they're the sort of the sexy new technologies that people are talking about. However, I think with the emergence of GDPR coming in May, I think that the companies are generally going to be focusing on making sure their data is that they've got control of their data and that their data is secure. I think that's going to be the dominant conversation that we have in the first part of the year. And once people have got control of the data, then they can start. That'll be a platform to be able to put some of these more newer exponential technologies on top of it, because you need to have control of the data first.
Okay. You mentioned, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality. Could you give us an example of, say, augmented reality and how that might be applied in the travel space?
Well, one of the things that we're showcasing at TTE this year is we've got three things. We're doing a virtual reality immersive experience, and we're going to do a facial recognition or emotion recognition experience where we're going to be looking at crowds of people and working out how happy or sad or fearful or disgusted they are. We are also going to be showcasing an augmented reality application, and one specific use of that is for things like guided tours. So you have a personalised tour which knows your preferences, and it can guide you around a particular resort or a cruise ship, and it can sort of, based on your personal preferences, you get a very unique tour. One of the problems, because we work in the cruise industry, it's a very strong market for us, and we have a lot of domain knowledge in the cruise industry. One of the biggest problems there is overcrowding. We're hoping that using augmented reality platforms, we can help to solve some of those challenges in the cruise industry. That's just one aspect of it.
Okay, so how would that work in practice, an augmented reality app for a cruise line?
Well, they would have, obviously the app, the consumer would have the app on their phone. It requires integration to their personal preferences. If they get off the ship at a certain resort, they'll have a character on the screen which would take them around the resort. But the advantage of it being digital is that you know where the other passengers are. Potentially, you may not know their names or their personal who they are, but you know the flow. You can start to control the flow of passengers around that resort because you know where they are, and you can send 5 people one way and 15 people the other way, depending on how busy the resort is. So that's one sort of way that we can use augmented reality and augmented reality tours to solve a particular challenge.
Okay, and was this developed internally at the request of a client, or is this something on the market?
No, this is something that we believe is a concept that we are pushing at the moment within the cruise industry. So it's just tackling one of the major challenges at the moment within the cruise industry that's only going to get worse. So it's just one particular application for augmented reality. There's other applications for it. So, for instance, historical overlays is another one where you get off the ship and you can, or you can go, or the plane, for example. If you go to somewhere like Pisa or Venice, you can hold up your phone and you can see a historical overlay of how it would have looked 300 years ago. So you can see horse and carts driving past, and then when you put your phone down, you'll see a scooter, for instance. So the historical overlays is another good use of augmented reality, where you can see how things would have looked historically. So it's also a good way of, when you're looking around, you can direct people to certain attractions or events, and they can find out, if they point the phone at a particular church, they can find out further information about it, and it'll give them information about it. So.
Where else can tech improve the cruise experience for passengers?
We at Ice, we don't believe that IT gets is high enough on the agenda within the cruise industry, and one of the things we've been lobbying for within the cruise industry is to have a technical forum. Just last year we set up this technical advisory council, which is it's a collection of the leading vendors in the industry, people like Amadeus and Sabre and Oracle, and there's about 15 or 20 vendors, and ICE chairing this technical advisory council, and we're hoping to using this forum to solve a lot of the challenges, through technology. The cruise industry at the moment is very competitive, so the different cruise lines are competing against each other, and they're very much siloed in terms of their technology. So they feel their guest experience is very much their own. But there's some challenges, and some things just can't be done yourself. You need to get a bunch of people together and work on it as in an uncompetitive way, because there's some things that affect the whole industry, and that's what we're hoping to achieve by that council.
What keeps you awake at night?
You mean what's the main challenge that we have?
Yeah.
I think it's I would say the awareness, the IT awareness. I think that the lack of, I mean, we're going through GDPR at the moment because we're a sort of a private cloud provider, so we host a lot of customer data in our data center. Now we're fortunate in the sense that one of our companies in the ecosystem is a cybersecurity and GDPR company, so we'll make sure that we're fully compliant. But what I get concerned about is some of our clients that aren't necessarily taking it as seriously as we are, and they're hosted in our data center. So that's one of the things that keep me awake at night is data compliance, and putting the consumer data back into the hands of the consumer instead of the companies that own they don't own the data, but the companies that control the data.
GDPR appears to have become everywhere in the last couple of weeks, where it really wasn't around, certainly in a few months ago. But I mean, how long have you been having the conversations around GDPR?
Over a year, so okay. 18 months we've been talking about GDPR, and a lot of companies have been sort of sleepwalking into this year, really. And I think the reason it's been around the last couple of weeks is because we've got Christmas out the way, and people are suddenly realising, right, okay, 2018 is all about GDPR. Let's put that onto the agenda. But as we predicted 18 months ago, now there is a huge activity in initiatives to try and get GDPR compliant, and there's very few qualified lawyers, auditors, and people that can actually advise properly, and there's a capacity problem. So as the date gets closer in May, it's going to get more and more dramatic, where people are going to be in bidding wars to try and get GDPR compliant, because they should have been onto this a year ago or 18 months ago. Really.
Okay, so a crash course in GDPR law for everybody then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, Ian, you're speaking at the event Travel Technology Europe. How to spice up your travel business with AI.
Mm-hmm.
Any ideas how one can spice up one's travel business with AI?
Well, it's the hot topic of discussion at the moment, and obviously we're doing a lot with AI. I think I mentioned that we've got this company that we set up last year called AI VR Labs, which is part of our ecosystem, and that company specialises in looking out for sort of best of breed, new emerging innovative products, and then we're working out how we can apply that to the travel industry. Apply those products to the travel industry. One of the products that I'll probably be talking about is the emotion recognition tool that we are using and integrating into various applications. So that tool will look at a face or a crowd of faces, and it will read the crowd's emotion, i.e. it will tell you the demographic of the crowd, how many male, female, age, ethnic origin, and also it will also give you a score of their happiness, their fear, anger or distrust. So we believe that there's a lot of applications for that across lots of industries we work in, but certainly in the travel industry, where, I mean, we were talking to a client recently that does bus tours, and they're for sort of they're kind of young, sort of 20 to 30-year-old bus tours from all over the world that come to Europe and do these bus tours. One of the applications that they're very interested in using this for is having a camera on the front of the bus, looking at the people on the bus, and gauging the happiness. And when the happiness goes above a certain meter, something happens. It might be a round of drinks or something like that. So it's one of those. There's all sorts of applications for it.
Okay, and is this on the market, or is it still sort of theoretical?
No, it's on the market. We've been testing it now for about 6 months, and we've got some pretty good results from it. And we're working with the software development teams of the company. It's out of one of the universities in Europe that this has been developed, this technology. And I first saw it at the World AI Summit in Amsterdam earlier this year, and we've been speaking to them since then, and looking at applications of how we can get it into the travel industry. So it is a product that's on the market, and it's at this stage it seems very easy to integrate into the sorts of solutions that we're developing.
Okay. The Ice pathway, I think you mentioned earlier, is
the Ice Way.
The Ice Way.
Yeah.
The Ice Way is a group of business units that operate across different verticals. The question I'm asking is what have you learnt from outside of travel, or what are you learning from outside of travel that's feeding into what you're doing specifically in travel?
Well, I mean, our primary vertical is travel and cruise. So, for the last 20 years, I've been pretty much immersed in the travel industry and the travel tech industry. However, the Ice Way and the Ice group of companies, we do have the secondary verticals of retail and healthcare. I'll be out in New York next week at the biggest retail show, and one of the things that retail have always had been ahead on travel is the whole idea of understanding the customer and customer loyalty. So they've been onto that for years and years, and that's certainly one area that we've transferred across into the travel industry in the way that the data is being managed, and we're using some of the technologies that they use in retail to transfer that across into travel. So that's one example of how we're looking at other industries. Healthcare, there's not so much transferal, but there is a lot of similarities between a patient pathway and a customer journey as well. So.
Okay, so this learning is feeding into the making travel better. Okay. Yeah. And if you were to meet a visitor from another world and they were to ask you what travel tech was, would you be able to describe it to them?
I would say that it's the fundamental foundation that everything in the travel industry runs on. I would say it's the thing that makes everything work, and it's essential to the travel industry's success.
Other than GDPR and AI, are there any other sort of emerging technologies that you're looking at, either from a sort of theoretical or practical point of view?
Yes. Again, one of the things that we're taking a great deal of interest in at the moment through our company in Tallinn, AIVO Labs, is blockchain. So that's it's still a few years out yet before it's properly usable in real world sense. There's obviously a lot of activity and lots of people are investing in cryptocurrencies. It's in the news all the time, but we're looking at various blockchain applications and platforms to see how they can be applied into the travel industry. And I know that certain larger travel companies, airlines, have got a number of blockchain projects on the go as well. So I see that's certainly an emerging technology that's going to shape the future, probably in the next 5 years, definitely.
So that's not on your radar?
It's on our radar, definitely, because we're thinking 5-10 years ahead. So
Okay.
we've already got sort of proof of concept blockchain projects on the go out in Tallinn at the moment. But we're not looking at having any massive take up on those this year. I think it's going to be another couple of years before that really people really start to understand the power of it. I think this whole idea of consumer data, again, because GDPR being a big driver for it, but it will change the shape of the way AI projects and AI tech is managed. At the moment, a lot of AI is all processed and managed in the cloud because that's where the computational power is. But I think that there will be a shift as technology gets better in the next 5 to 10 years. There's going to be a shift for all that consumer data to be held on the edge, and by that I mean that if you're using some piece of some application that's using AI, so it knows about you and it's suggesting things, your actual individual data will be held on your edge device, and by that I mean your phone, with all the computational power happening in the cloud, but the cloud will not know anything about your data.